this is a lady whose phone was tapped by the US government. So I think she was very careful on what kind of information she did share. But let's be very clear here. You are talking, and if we're focusing on European politics, simply they don't give a shit what you and I think. They don't care. What do I base that on? I base it on many things. Who's holding them accountable? No one. Do they care if they get voted out of the office? Not really. All you have to do, and I've gained this knowledge from spending almost 2 decades in Monte Carlo at Monaco, which is a tax haven in the southern part of France. It's an independent country, small country, 35,000 people, but packs a punch when it comes to banking and banking secrecy. When the Pandora Papers and the Panama Papers came out, and I encourage everyone who is not familiar with those documents, it's very easy to log into that website.
I'm sorry, Alex. I'm just going to have to pop out for a few minutes.
Sure.
I've got
No
a
problem,
work
AJ.
call, so I'll join you guys in a minute. Yeah.
Sounds good. So it doesn't take long for you to log into this system. It's kind of the Google of all the, we'll call it elites that are, we'll say, maybe doing backdoor deals or having offshore accounts. I'll give you an example. Why not? Let's give you an example of a couple of Europeans, political leaders that have bank accounts that are made offshore. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that people that have offshore bank accounts are doing anything wrong. Some of them are to protect assets, of course. Yachts protect or put in companies in case a owner has a civil claim against them, or to also kind of keep the identity secret. But if we look at the Panama Papers, this was leaked by the Mossack Fonseca firm that was in Panama. That's why it's got its legendary name, the Panama Papers. For example, the Iceland Prime Minister, little country, that we don't hear much about, Iceland. He and his wife, Sigmundur David, and his wife allegedly used a secret offshore firm called Witris Incorporated to hide money in the British Virgin Islands. Reports claim he owned multi-millions of dollars from the Icelandic bank bonds during the financial crisis. That's just one minor little example. But as I was scrolling down, just quickly looking at this, another name came to my attention. And here it is. Ukraine's president at the time, after 2014, the legendary himself, Petro Poroshenko, is the sole shareholder of Prime Asset Partners Limited, a company set up in the British Virgin Islands after assuming office in 2014. He pledged to sell most of his assets, all of which were transferred to Prime Assets Capital. Now, why do these guys set up these types of incorporations? They use trusts to become nominees of these companies to hide who the beneficial owner is of these companies. Having 20 years of experience in Monte Carlo, you do tend to start to understand how these structures work and the people behind it and the money that is involved in it. Does German politicians care about accountability? No, because no one can hold them accountable. Do governments have enough money to go after these, to try to get documents turned over in another jurisdiction that is hidden by a law firm that is backed up by another firm that has people be the fronts for these countries and companies? No, they don't. They haven't been successful. And even if they do try to find out who the beneficial owner is, then they have to get the banks to release that information. Very, very, very difficult. So if you don't think that this Ukraine war is generating money for a lot of these politicians, as Brian has consistently said, there is much more going on behind the scenes. Now, when it comes to China, good luck trying to get away with this kind of stuff in the country that I'm living in right now, because the politicians here are accountable. And there's probably some people viewing today wondering, where I'm going with this. I'm in China. I've been here in and out of China, traveling from this country since 2003. I decided, like Brian, to take China on as a project to try to educate myself and educate the world on what really is going on in this country from a content creator's view. I work with a local media company here to collaborate, and they give me access to a lot of stuff that the average person can't get to. And I can tell you something, that since coming to become the chairman, President Xi has really cracked down on corruption in a pretty amazing way. There's figures between 100,000 to 270,000 arrests or detainments or massive investigations and criminal prosecutions that have come. Now, people might say, wait a moment, that sounds like a leader that is cracking down. Well, yeah, he did crack down. And yes, China has forged forward on a successful route. Imagine having somebody in power in Germany that would like to crack down on corruption. Would the German press or the international press be saying, what a bad guy, he's combating corruption? And Brian, about this stuff.
They
know about it.
They might do that because that's the reason why AJ's question was, why are they doing it? Because they're corrupt and they're puppets of the West. And if you were a German politician trying to clean things up, they would absolutely go after you and bury you. And so yes, they might. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, they might do that.
I mean, Brian, you have an interest in China. AJ's gone. He'll be back soon. Just want to say thank you to all the amazing people that have come up to the program today. I've taken the back seat here and let AJ, this is his channel, this is his subscribers, and a lot of Brian's subscribers have also come in. If you're not aware, if you're coming in from Brian's platform, AJ has a couple of channels. All the links are in the description below, right down there. They're all there. Don't forget to subscribe to Brian's channel. Amazing, amazing channel. And the growth of his channel has been absolutely explosive. There's a reason why these channels are growing. There's a reason why Brian's channel is growing at the rate that it's doing, is because people want the truth. Plain and simple. And he does amazing work. I also do what I can to report out of China. I'm starting to get into very deep investigative pieces here in the last couple of weeks. You can subscribe to my channel below, Reporterfy Media, as well as the news organization that I collaborate with is iChongqing. And don't forget to also subscribe to AJ's channel. I'm going to now go over to Brian, and I would like to really ask you a question. Since being in Thailand there, you have witnessed NGOs that are trying to destabilize the country. You have also been witnessing them trying to get into the political parties. Do you think China is going to have a problem with this type of tactics from the collective West in trying to infiltrate China? Or is China that kind of unbeatable country that they won't allow this to go on? Your thoughts on that? I really would like to hear it.
Well, it's obvious that the leadership in China are aware of what the U.S.'s game is. So they're aware of it, and they have taken very serious measures against it. And they're measures that any country would take. We hear in the Western media, oh, look at China cracking down on those peaceful protesters in Hong Kong. That was all funded by the U.S. And if China was funding mobs, violent mobs in, say, New York City, all of those organizations, the leadership would be thrown in jail. Those organizations would be uprooted, and rightfully so. It's a violation of another nation's sovereignty. It's a violation of the UN Charter. So this is what China has done. China is in a position now where they can do this. Decades ago, they were not as strong, and there were a lot of things that they had to go along with because they simply did not have the power to do so. Even now, they try to be careful with the way they uproot or deal with malign foreign influence in their internal political affairs. Look at Taiwan. They're not all powerful. They do not have the ability to just sweep aside U.S. meddling, even within their own territory. Taiwan is part of China.
It's interesting, Brian, that you bring up Hong Kong there. I flew from Thailand to Hong Kong to cover that protest, and I was greeted by not protesters, I was greeted by rioters. I just want to clear the air on my thoughts on that.
Absolutely.
Coming into the country, I tried to apply for media accreditation. And the bizarre thing is I tried for 5 days to try to get my press pass for Hong Kong. And all arrows continued to point me to Apple. I think it was called Apple Daily. Or, you know who I'm talking about? It's one of the news organizations. Its founder now in jail.
Yeah.
And maybe you can explain to the audience about who I'm talking and what organization.
Hanging out. I forget what was his name. Do you remember? But I remember he was sitting in the White House, openly conspiring with the U.S. government to overthrow the Chinese government.
And they told me before I could, they said, "Wait a minute, no, you can't cover it." And I'm who's, and it was bizarre because I was trying to get my press pass. I was coming from Thailand. I said, "The hell with this. I'm just going to go get my hats printed. I'm going to wear, a yellow fluorescent vest, just like all the other media that was on site there." And as soon as I got down there, and I covered this on my channel, as soon as I got into Hong Kong, I thought, whoa. Okay, wait a minute. The press that's reporting there are not who you think they are. And I was very careful. I was, ducking and weaving through a lot of press. And there was a lot of press there, guys. There was a ton of press, but they were telling quite the interesting story, completely different from what I was seeing. Completely different, lying. And it was, Jimmy Lai. That's the guy's name.
Jimmy Lai.
And this guy, I have to tell you, they must have been buying all the Google AdWords for Hong Kong press passes, because every time I pressed a link for information or tried to get information for the press pass, it kept linking to their channel. And then I got a response back from them that says, "Oh yes, what organization you with? Okay, send us a copy of your documentation. We'll take care of you. And what hotel and what location you're staying at." I said, BS to that. Got on the plane anyway. Hopped off the plane in Hong Kong, let the camera start rolling, and started to realize very quick that the show that they were telling the world, the media there, sorry boys, nice try. There's content creators out there that are going to get the real message out. And here we are. I mean, Jimmy Lai, they called him. But you're right, Brian. I mean, you're right on. The U.S. is going to try to penetrate here in China, but do you think they're going to have any success at doing this?
I think their desperation stems from the fact that they have been pushed out of everywhere. They were operating in Tibet as far back as the 50s. I still have people, Brian, free Tibet. The China invaded Tibet. Just go to the State Department's website. They admit it was a CIA operation all the way back to the 50s and has been ever since. So they were pushed out of Tibet. They were pushed out of Xinjiang. They were pushed out of Hong Kong. Now the U.S., its last foothold is Taiwan. And so they're playing that for all it's worth. That's where they're going to try to make their move. They really don't have the ability to get into the rest of China. The reason why is because China realizes what's going on. They see their information space as a domain as important to protect as a nation's airspace, its shores, its land borders. They see information space as just as important to protect, to prevent the U.S. from entering into it and running amok. Just like if you just let a bunch of U.S. tanks running around on your streets, they cannot allow U.S. government to pour millions, if not billions, into the media environment in China, because what will they do? People are impressionable. They're going to watch this. They're going to read this. They're going to get brainwashed. They're going to start thinking that there are things that they want that are actually not in their best interest. Think about what they've done to Ukraine. That's exactly how they did that. They brainwashed many people in a country to the point where they are suicidal. They are going to their deaths to fight for NATO's right to menace Russia on its own border. They're doing the same thing in Taiwan right now. They block out anything that is remotely pro-China or an alternative voice to what's going on in Taiwan. it's the U.S. government funding these media organizations, or it's the Democratic Progressive Party through the Taiwan Foundation for Democracy, which is a subsidiary of the National Endowment for Democracy. A lot of people don't know all of this. Of course, the Western media isn't going to say any of this, but what I like to do is just show people their own official website and where they admit all of this.
You know, they're part of that 300 million annual anti-China budget. It's interesting how much the American government spends on trying to, change people's mind. I mean, I like that they're spending so much of it in Taiwan because, the mainlanders, they're not watching YouTube. First of all, let me clear something up when people use this term. YouTube is banned in China. Facebook is banned in China. I'm going to be clear with you guys. First of all, the average Chinese person, I live in a major city here, a city of 32 million people. Okay, this is a mega city. It's almost the population of Canada right outside that window. They don't care about YouTube, guys. They don't care about Facebook. They got Bilibili. They got Douyin, which is the parent company to TikTok, by the way. So enjoy that application in the West. They don't care. They have Sequoia. They have all their social networking platforms. And guess what? They can criticize their government on it. There's lots of criticizing of the government here. Yes, the Chinese can bitch and complain if they want about what's going on. They can yell at the local community leader that they might have a pothole out front of their house. They can do that. But where it's really misunderstood is you got to think about this weapon. This weapon is social media that has been used in America to silence your own president, to take him right off the air. Now, do you want to have an organization let run wild in a country of 1.5 million that can actually strip a president from social networks in a so-called democracy of the United States where they're claiming there's freedom of speech? Sorry, there ain't. You can't say that it's freedom of speech. No, they're silenced. They're either canceled or completely, a lot of big names have left YouTube because, well, they're either kicked off or they're being canceled out there. So when the agreement was very clear many years ago, and the Americans have the same agreement unilaterally. If you're going to put a country or a company in the United States of America, it's going to be a social network, you got to hand over the keys to the NSA. Very clear, very clear. If you're going to come over to a country of 1.5 billion and allow Facebook and YouTube to be massive propaganda machines, these guys aren't stupid. Wake up. You have a political party that is absolutely responsible to the people. And people, you can say what you want. You can call me a CPC shill. I don't care. All I know is outside that door, in a city of 32 million people, I have been here over a year and a half now. I haven't seen not one single homeless person on the streets ever. Nowhere. It hasn't existed. That's not part of the society here. The people hold their governments accountable here. And what do they get in return? Brand new airports, 60,000 kilometers of bullet trains. Somebody mentioned something about the pollution. Alex, talk about the pollution. 310 days of clean air quality here in Chongqing, a city that was a major mega industrial city 20 years ago. Go look at my videos, blue sky. How can I fake blue sky, guys? I mean, this is the really misunderstanding about China. It's absolutely crazy. And that's why I love your reporting on Thailand, Brian. I asked a guy who's a protester when I was in Thailand last time. I said, what are you protesting for? He says, well, what kind of question is that? I said, well, what do you do? He says, I'm a law student. I said, okay, well, tell me something that Thailand doesn't allow you to do. Just give me two things. I said, can you practice religion? He says, yeah. I said, can you go out to the bar? Yeah. Can you have drinks? Can you smoke cigarettes? Can you drive at fast speed? What can't you do? And he says, well, my friends, I needed to join my friends because they were doing it. And I said, well, why were they protesting? Well, one of the persons that organized it, and there we go into the organization, getting these young minds to believe that there's something that they're totally missing, even though they got a good job, they can do anything, they can go to the bars. I'm talking about the Thai. The Thais, a great, fantastic country. You can enjoy food, practice whatever religion you want to do, but yet the NGOs that are infiltrating the universities are corrupting these kids' minds to think that they're missing out on something big. But anyway, AJ, welcome back.
Hey, I got to explain myself, guys. I work for the government, and obviously I'm actually working from home today, and I'm doing this live stream. Somebody has told my department I'm on this live stream, so somebody has actually this word has spread. So my boss was calling me.
Do you want to vacate and Brian and I will run the rest?
No. My boss was actually calling me, and he said, "What's going on? What are you doing?" And he said, "Is this?" He says, "Is this some sort of security risk?" And I said, "No, I'm just doing a live stream. Blah blah blah. We're just talking." So, I just left it there. Yeah. So first of all, I have no idea how they knew. I think we got about 2,000 viewers or so. I think maybe somebody is in here that shouldn't be in here, and word has spread to my workplace. But it doesn't really matter, guys, because I'm already. A lot of you who follow my channel will know that I've already been sent a letter, which I'll have to leave the office in the next few months. They are making huge redundancies in the civil service, so I've only got a couple months left anyway, so they can't really sack me, to be honest. They have to follow the process. So I've got nothing to worry about. This live stream will continue, so don't worry about it, guys. No, it's fine. I that's the same thing I told my boss. I said, look, end of the day, I'm talking. Whatever you guys want to do to me, you can do to me, but that's not going to change. I'm still leaving in a couple of months, so I thought I'd explain that to the viewers why I went missing. Had to explain.
Well, here's a good test for freedom of speech.
So this is why, guys, in UK you cannot really say what's in your mind. People, especially when you're working for the government, people clamp down on you very hard. People try and stop you from speaking the truth. That's the problem we're having in the West. I mean, just give you an example with Assange, and see how he's been treated. The problem with the democracy in the West doesn't really exist. It's just a sham. It's just a sham, making people think they got freedom. They don't really have any freedom. Reality-wise, people really can't say what they want and do what they want. We have this place in the UK called the Speaker's Corner, and that's supposed to be an area in London where you have freedom of speech. And there are YouTube videos. You're welcome to check it out, guys, if you don't believe me. There are YouTube videos how police would arrest people for speaking their minds in Speaker's Corner. Wow. Especially during the times when COVID, when people were talking about obviously COVID stuff, they would get arrested in Speaker's Corner. There's no real freedom, and you're welcome to Google it or YouTube it, how police arrest people in Speaker's Corner for speaking their minds, and it doesn't really exist, guys. Anyway, over to you. I don't know what you guys were talking about. Please continue finishing, and then we'll move on to China and Taiwan after that.
Yeah, we kind of were wading into China. So we're kind of in it, but we haven't really, I guess, officially started talking about the real serious issue. But Alex was talking about the media, and I was saying how information space for a country is as important to protect as your airspace, your shores, your land borders. If you just let another country and its corporations and the fact that Facebook and Twitter work with the U.S. State Department, I don't even think that is a secret. There are New York Times articles about the Arab Spring where they admit that Facebook and Twitter and Google, they were doing these training sessions all the way as early as 2008. So that was years before the 2011 Arab Spring. They were getting these specific groups that participated in that unrest ready years in advance. And it was big tech with the State Department doing it in tandem. If you were to allow Facebook or Twitter into China's information space, it would be used as a weapon, just like if you let a tank roll in over the border. That is why China has its own social media alternatives, has its own information space, its own infrastructure. Other nations need to see the necessity of doing this. I've said many times that nations like Russia and China that have their own social media networks, what they need to do is they import weapons from Russia and China to protect all of these other domains, air, land, sea. Why aren't you importing platforms from these countries to protect your information space as well? Because Twitter and Facebook here in Thailand do not reflect the best interests of the Thai people. It reflects the best interests of the U.S. State Department working with them for regime change to try to overthrow the government. And not just the government, not just the politicians in power right now, the entire system. They want to overthrow the entire system. And it's not to make the country better or to steal everything the country has. They will steal everything Thailand has, but it will be to wreck it because they know they have nothing better to offer Thailand than China does. And so if they can't have it, they will wreck it. They will surround China with a burning wasteland. China will be isolated because they won't have anyone to trade with. This is what they're doing to Myanmar right next door. The exact same process, the NED behind all of these opposition groups. Aung San Suu Kyi literally had white men from Australia, from the UK, working for her as her inner circle, rewriting the constitution, reworking the legal system. It was unbelievable. And the Western media will say, well, there was a coup because Myanmar is a dictatorship and they wanted Aung San Suu Kyi out because she was representing the people. No, she represented Washington, London, and they uprooted their puppet in Myanmar. And it's the same story for every country here in Southeast Asia. I've not really dug too deeply into Indonesia, but I have dug deeply into Myanmar, Malaysia, Cambodia, and of course Thailand, and a little bit into Vietnam. And it's the same case in every single situation. Is the same case. And if you look at a map of where the NED is meddling, where there have been violent conflicts, where there are U.S. troops, you can see it is a ring completely surrounding China. It's unmistakable.
I also wanted to bring up South Korea and Japan as well. I don't know if you realize about this Chip 4 bill that they recently Biden signed. And not only is the USA destroying its own economy, I mean, we're talking about $1.5 trillion worth of stocks in US companies, semiconductor companies who have lost value. But now they are trying to destroy the Japanese and the South Korean economy as well. They have banned South Korean companies from operating in China. They have banned Japanese companies from operating in China. They've banned them from selling high-end semiconductor equipment and semiconductor chips to China. Now, it's not about them having their own trade war. Now they want to bring their allies into it and make sure they take them down with them. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, look, end of the day, it's the US companies that lose out, and the South Korean companies lose out, Japanese companies lose out. Imagine this: if you're a company and you spend years of research building this high-end chip, but then you find out you can't sell it to your biggest customer. China is the biggest customer. I mean, China is the factory of the world. Imagine how many chips they use on a daily basis, fit them into their IoT devices, cars, and other electrical equipment that they send around the world. I mean, China is the largest company. Imagine you spend years researching this chip and suddenly been told you can't sell it to your biggest customer. What are you going to do? I mean, and when China develops its own semiconductor sector, and they will, I mean, they are already, they've already built 7 nanometers, I believe, SMRC, and it will take them years.
5.
Yeah,
now.
5, and it will take them a couple more years, maybe 5 years, but they will catch up. And imagine if China does catch up, how the Americans going to sell their chips to China, because they won't need them anymore. They're completely destroying not only their economy now, but the future. I mean, just to give you an example of Chinese technology. They stopped the Chinese from being part of the International Space Station. They banned the Chinese. They said, oh, first of all, Chinese cannot offer us anything. Secondly, it's a big security risk. 5-10 years later, China's now has got the best space industry in the world. They've got space stations happening. They've got a moon landing happening very soon. They're going to be mining the moon. They're well ahead of United States, and they're well ahead of the Artemis program. I mean, what do you guys think? Well, why are they doing this? I mean, is there no one with any common sense thinking this is just not going to work? Is there no one standing up and saying, hang on a second, what are you guys doing? Well, what do you think, Brian? And we'll go to Alex and we'll talk about the stocks and stuff.
Well, the people making the decisions, this is a foreign policy that spans decades. If you go into State Department documents from right after World War II, they talk about is preventing the Soviet Union or China from becoming peer or near peer competitors. They were going to eliminate them, and they wanted to maintain hegemony over the planet. This has always been the plan. And back then they had this plan to do all of this regime change, to try to get into China's markets and work them from the inside and putting pressure on them on the outside. The Tiananmen protests that we always hear a certain version of these events in the Western media. That was an attempt. That was regime change attempt by the U.S. I got a bug flying in my room. Just if I'm swatting at something, I'm not losing my mind. So that was the plan. But these plans were created in a different time, and they were not thinking about technology leveling the playing field. They were not thinking about this disparity between the West and the rest of the world in terms of technology ever closing, but it has. And they're looking at the chip industry, and they're just trying to think of anything they can do to slow down or reverse China's rise. And this is one of the many, many ways they're thinking about doing it. They obviously cannot do it by competing, so they're cheating and they're ruining everything. They're just blocking China from getting the tools. This is not competition. You're going out to deliberately hurt China's economy. So the Chip 4 alliance, this was supposed to, the way they sold it was the United States, Taiwan, Japan, South Korea. They're all going to join forces. They're going to create this massive world-class ecosystem, supply chains, research and development. But really all it was making South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan transfer their intellectual property and technology to the U.S., to U.S. companies, and like you said, restrict their access to China's markets. They're not able to do anything with China. And South Korea, for example, has huge investments, multi-billion-dollar investments in China, and it's also a huge market where they sell things as well, just as you said. So it really is another one of these examples. We see how Ukraine self-destructed because it was a U.S. proxy used against Russia to hurt Russia and destroying itself in the process. That's the Chip 4 alliance. It's to get South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan to destroy their chip industries. The U.S. picking up the broken pieces or anything valuable left over, in the hopes that at the end of it, China was knocked down a peg and the U.S. comes out stronger. That is the whole point of it. Of course, even American companies like NVIDIA, they make billions in China, and now they cannot. And they even said, "You're doing this. Where do you think all of our R&D money comes from? It comes from selling large amounts of our products." Now you're cutting China off from our products. They can't use our chips, our boards, our graphic processors. Okay, but now we can't do research and development at the same pace. China is eventually going to catch up. Again, just as you said. I don't know if people know this, but China graduates millions more every single year in the field of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And even in terms of PhDs in these fields, thousands more. And by 2025, they say it'll be twice as many in China than the United States. That type of these human resources that China is investing in and growing its disparity between where it is and where the U.S. is It's just going to grow and grow and grow. And they are going to catch up. They're also going to surpass the United States. And what the US is doing is not only are they inevitably going to lose, but they're not going to hold any share in the prosperity that China gets once they reach the top. The US is doing that to themselves unnecessarily. They could work among all of these other nations and compete and cooperate like a normal country, but they won't. They're painting themselves into this corner where they are estranging themselves to everyone.
So, Alex, you know a lot about stocks and shares. How do you think these companies are feeling watching their stock values go down 40%, 60%? And, you know, we're talking about 1.5 trillion here. We're not talking small change. What do you think is going through these minds of these American semiconductor companies?
I think that it's not the CEO's fault of these publicly traded companies. It's not the shareholders' fault, but this is completely a government that is really messing with fire here. In a matter of fact, if you go back to March 2020 and you look at the trading on the S&P when the pandemic was announced, you will see the market quickly dropped 43 to 45% within a 3 or 4 week period. Then the Americans hit the panic button, pumped the paper into the market, and the market took a bit of time and it rebounded. The true value of some of these companies that are trading on the S&P, and that's the Standard & Poor's. For some of you people that aren't aware of this index, it's the United States top 500 index companies by market cap. In a blink of an eye, if you pull the Chinese market out of these companies, you will see one of the largest collection of ghost companies ever seen. The balance sheets of some of these companies are actually worth nothing. Look at how much money Boeing has borrowed over the last couple of years. Everybody says, yeah, well, that's debt to equity, Alex. That's debt to equity. Well, if you shut off the buying channel, for example, outside these doors here, there's 3 brand new malls across the street. 60% of the stores in those malls are American, whether it's Starbucks, whether it's, you know, other major brands. Tesla, for example, is a brand here that's selling. Adidas, I mean, you have European brands, but some of these brands are very, very exposed here in China. And if you take out the Chinese customer, the consumer, these are the consumers that are holding up the balance sheets of these S&P companies. You pull the plug on those, and here's a figure that I want you guys to kind of write down. This is not a prediction. This is not investment advice. But the 2200 handle for the S&P of March of 2023, keep an eye on it. Let's see, maybe if everything goes well geopolitically, we might avoid it. If everything goes to hell in a handbasket, that 2200 handle of the S&P could blow through it very fast. And I'm not just making this up. You can see the bets on the derivatives markets that are ensuring that position on the S&P. Many banks are buying protection for that level of March of 2023. It could be nothing, or it could be something catastrophic. But the moment that you start flirting with your consumers of 1.5 billion that have been holding up your balance sheets, and I know there's a lot of people out there that says, the hell with China, who cares about China? We don't need China. Sorry, you do. If you have any money in the market, you need them. If you have any business that is importing, you need them. I don't care what your opinion is about the political party here, but you need this consumer, you need this country, you need these places that, Huawei, major R&D company, and even to show politeness to our American corporations, the Chinese have actually opened up the courts here and allowed American companies to come in here and defend their intellectual properties against some Chinese companies here. Yes, they have done that. That is true. So all this bad negative energy here, the Chinese don't want. They want America to grow. They want to prosper. They want both nations to work together to move forward. What a great thing if two
Win-win.
nations would do that. Win-win, exactly. But do you see $100 billion leaving the bank accounts of China to go to some war in a country that is full of corruption? You don't see 1 yuan leave this country. And that's my point on it.
You're right, Alex. I lived in China 10 years ago, and I can tell you that it's very, very difficult to move money out of China. And I was actually looking for ways to move my money out of China, because I had a job in China at the time, and I put it into a bank account. And at this time, I wanted to go back to UK, and I was trying to move it to UK, and I couldn't. I had to ask a lot of people. I had to fly through a lot of hoops, and that money stayed in China, and I couldn't move it out. But it's so easy to move money from other countries, European countries, into China, but it's very, very difficult to move it out of China. And now that China's blocked cryptocurrency as well, it's made it even more difficult. And everyone knows how PayPal has been. PayPal is not a trusted source anymore. So if you want to move money out of PayPal, good luck to you, because they will keep that money and you will lose it. But let's go to Taiwan now. I mean, I said to you that about how United States is using South Korea and Japan for their trade wars and destroying their own economy. But what if there is a physical war? And it feels to me that United States has got a brand new doctrine where they use other people as resources, as guinea pigs, as pawns to fight their wars, and they're fighting Ukraine to every last Ukrainian. When they fought in Iraq in the second Iraq war, they called it the coalition of the willing, and they brought a lot of UN troops, NATO troops, and other troops from around the world. And it seems that US is fighting this new war where they fight from a distance, but they use other countries' resources as pawns. We're talking about people, resources, and Japan and South Korea are right on their firing line if there was ever a hot war within Taiwan. And you got 50,000 troops in Japan, 40,000 troops in South Korea. And if there was ever a hot war, you cannot discount that United States will send troops, fire rockets from South Korea or Japan, get these two countries involved. And I want to include Australia as well, by the way. I mean, is this what you see happening, Brian? They're going to use other countries as cannon fodder for a war with China, and they will completely burn South Korea and Japan and Australia to the ground while fighting China, while keeping themselves at a distance. Because we know that United States will not bring its aircraft carriers anywhere near the Taiwanese borders, because they will be sunk with China's hypersonic missiles. It would be too risky for them. And if there was a war, do you think that the United States will find more of a sneaky war? And I say sneaky war because there's a white paper. It's in Google. You're welcome to search for it. There was a white paper during the Obama years where they were talking about if there was ever a hot war with China, they will block all trade routes with China. And this is one of the reasons why China went ahead and building this BRI, and because if United States blocked the Malacca Strait, for example, and Suez Canal, it would cause major problems for China in terms of trade. They won't be able to get energy, raw materials. But with the BRI, this is why they fast-track the BRI, and this is one of the main reasons. Do you think they will fight wars like that? Obviously, the United States is a blue water navy, and they've got 800 bases around the world, and they will try and stifle China rather than going into China's borders, getting sunk. Is that the kind of war you think they might fight? And they will use South Korea, they will use Japan as cannon fodder, as well as Australia. Is that what you think that will happen?
You're bringing up a lot of really good points. That is basically what they're thinking of doing. You have to remember, right now, if you look at the economy of Japan or South Korea, or if you look at Taiwan, its economy depends on the rest of China. Without it, it will not exist. It'll crater and disappear. Just like Ukraine. Without the Russian economy, with all these ties and cooperation that Ukraine had with Russia, it would collapse. But once it collapses, these are desperate people. They have no ties with Russia. They really, and you're radicalizing the population. They really have nothing to lose by fighting Russia with the promise of getting into the EU and all of this prosperity that is never, ever coming. And it's kind of the same process. We were just talking about the Chip 4 Alliance, how it's going to destroy Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan's chip industry, how the US is going to strip mine it. They're going to be losing billions by cutting off themselves from China. And then that will be one less reason for the leadership in, say, Tokyo or Seoul to hesitate before joining some war with the United States against China. Their policy papers, just as you said, I think it's called War with China. I think that's the title of it, and it's from the Rand Corporation. Yep. And that is what they talk about. If they can shut down the shipping, even without doing a blockade, just the threat of shipping being in danger from ongoing warfare, this would be enough for most shipping companies not to want to send their ships to Chinese ports. This is their rationale, and that the Chinese economy will be devastated much more so than the U.S. economy. At the end of it, the U.S. will come out stronger. But I bet they believe that in terms of Russia too. If we put all these sanctions on Russia, we blow up the Nord Stream pipelines, Russia will be buried and out of business and decimated economically, and we'll be stronger on the other side. But it doesn't really look like that's happening, because Russia and China, here's the problem the Western policy making circles have. They honestly believe that they're superior, that Russians, the Chinese people, somehow they're inferior. No matter how many things they have going for them to their advantage, they're just fundamentally inferior to the West, to white West people. I hate to be blunt like that, but this is how they think. And if people looking at U.S. foreign policy say, no, that it's not racist, of course it is. Of course it is. Now, they believe that, but it is a false premise. China is by no means inferior, fundamentally inferior. They're just as smart, just as hardworking. And as I said, they have all of these things to their advantage. 5 times the population, millions more graduating in relevant fields that will actually feed into the economy, and high-tech fields that benefit the military as well. All of these things are going to inevitably have China surpass the US and the collective West. China has a larger population than the G7 combined. So their premise is that they can strangle China because they're inferior. They're not going to figure out a way around all of these obstacles we're putting up for them. They already are. They already are figuring out ways around it. Russia already is finding ways around these obstacles. If you try to close off shipping to China, like you said, the Belt and Road Initiative, these are overland routes to move goods. There's also a northern route across northern Russia. They've got nuclear-powered icebreakers clearing that out. That'll be an alternative. And they're building pipelines between Russia and China. So this is all something they're preparing for. And every single day that goes by, they're more prepared. And the U.S., all of these tricks that they had, all of these blades they had sharpened or blunted a little more each day.
Yeah, and don't forget the huge EV industry in China as well. So every year goes past, China needs less and less oil to drive these cars because they're all going to be run by EV, and obviously a huge push of renewables as well. So every year that goes past, China needs less fossil fuels. We got 10 minutes left, guys. Alex, do you want to bring up any other topics? I'll let you.
I did try to. I've been just messaging Patrick Lancaster here on my phone. I said, Patrick, send us out a message to the audience. He is currently in quite a interesting zone right now in the Ukraine, and he's going to try to get a voice message for us three I told him that we were on the show today, and I said, if you can send us a voice update, that would be great. I really like what Brian was talking about in regards to China and your evaluation on how the U.S. actually do believe in their own bullshit. It's quite remarkable. We've all heard of people that are preppers that are prepping for, the end of the world, or if inflation. I mean, actually, it's quite brilliant. Anybody that's bought a lot of stuff in preparation to inflation is quite smart. Well, imagine a country of 1.5 billion being a prepper country. That's China. This government is stockpiling everything you can imagine. And if the bloody sun went out or burned out tomorrow, I'd be pretty interested. It'd probably be the only nation left standing, because these guys are pretty much planning for anything, okay? They're not naive and thinking, they're sitting back and they're watching very closely what's going on, okay? And they're being mature about it, saying, try the diplomatic route. They don't want to get involved in this. They're too busy. They're too busy building 60,000 kilometers of railway track for high-speed trains. They're too busy building solar farms, wind farms. As AJ said, EV business. I'm in iChongqing. There's EV cars everywhere. You got to be careful when you cross the street because they're so silent. You got to really be careful in a city of 30-some million, where I would say a majority of the new vehicles on the road are EV vehicles. It's pretty crazy. AJ, I just want to commend you for your dedication on YouTube and your dedication to your audience. You and Brian, I used to do a fair amount of live streams early on in my channel, and you guys have both inspired me to bring back the Let's Talk China show on Sundays. Your determination that you guys continue to work through. I mean, AJ, I'm sorry about what happened today.
It's all right.
Unfortunate event at work.
I look at the big picture in the day. Work is work, but to spread the truth, to make people listen to the truth and make them understand what goes on, that is more important, to send that message out. But work is work. Money is money. In the day, in the day, money comes, money goes. That's not important. I mean, if I wanted a safe life, I could have just sat at home with the missus, enjoyed my life, and watched your channel, watched Brian's channel. I would have just sat there and enjoyed my life like that. But sometimes you got to do the difficult things in life. But you don't do it for you don't do it for the profit, because you really don't make much on YouTube. But you don't do it for the fame. I certainly don't do it for the fame, because my picture's not even up.
Well, and I just wanted to say, Brian, your reporting is really, really balancing a lot of opinions out there that were really swayed or convinced or propagandized by the American government. That machine is a huge machine to go against. I admire your courage, and same with you, AJ. We know that what we're doing is pretty risky. We know we're going against the grain. Hell, if we wanted to have channels 10 times more population, all we'd have to do is go on the hate scene and follow everybody else's BS. But that is not what we do. And again, thank you so much for dedicating some of your time tonight, Brian, to share the screen with AJ. And of course, me, I'm very blessed that both of you guys invited me along. And please, Brian,
we've beat the record, Alex.
Sorry?
We've beat the record. We've got 2,000 people on average for the past hour or two, I guess. So it's been a really good success.
Brian, I know it's hard work. Trust me, I do it every day here at my job as well. Don't give up. Just keep pushing forward. I know it's tremendously hard dedication work, but you have the support of hundreds of thousands of people. And, my hat is off to you, sir. Thank you.
It's a pleasure and an honor to be on. I'm happy to do it. I appreciate other people coming out and speaking up. I also appreciate all of the people who support us so that we can continue doing this. I do this because I watched the U.S., its machine, its lies, burn the city that I live in, try to burn it down twice, and bring war weapons into the streets. I have kids now. I cannot afford to allow this to happen and be silent about it. I have to speak up. When you see it happening in the places you know, the people you know being affected, then when you see it on the news someplace like Syria or in Ukraine, it takes on a whole new level of meaning. It's personal. It's personal, and it's unnecessary. When you look at all of these countries in Southeast Asia, all of their differences, different religions, different historical backgrounds, even today, different objectives, political objectives, and yet they're still able to get along more or less without resorting to conflict, without being childish and nasty and trying to isolate each other. They don't always get along, and it's far, far from perfect. But this unipolar world order of the United States, where it has to pull everyone down, it allows nobody to prosper so that it can lord over everyone. This has to end. I don't know if multipolarism is going to be perfect. Probably not, but it's going to be better than what we're going through right now. You can already see how the playing field is being leveled. You could already see people's lives, say like in Laos, improving in ways they never would have if the US continued dominating this region. People are prospering more now than ever, specifically because the corrosive influence of Washington and Wall Street is fading here. I think it's something worth fighting for, to see people get a chance to live a normal life and not have to worry about war or poverty or sickness. These are things that shouldn't be hanging over our collective heads. It's the year 2022. We have the ability to get past all of this. And there's a small handful of malice people trying to hold it back. And we just got to keep working. It's not going to happen overnight. This problem wasn't created overnight, but we have to just keep chipping away at it. What other choice do we have? I don't see what other choice I have.
I'm fairly new in this YouTube world. I haven't been here for years. I've probably been around for maybe just over a year. And I too, like everyone else, was brainwashed once upon a time. I used to believe everything in the BBC. I used to believe what I was seeing in social media, and everything changed. I have traveled around. I've been to China and stuff, and I just couldn't believe. There was a time when UK had a very good relationship with China. It was the golden years. President Xi Jinping was shown around Buckingham Palace. He met the Queen. David Cameron took him to the local pub, and I thought things were, looking up. And that was a time when I was in China, and everything was great. I came back to UK. A couple of years later, suddenly everything changed. Trump came into power and started this ridiculous trade war. And I had this Huawei phone, and overnight my Huawei phone just became useless. I'm thinking, what's going on? They just sanctioned the whole Huawei phone, and it's just become useless. And then I had some good Chinese friends as well. I used to get along with, and one of my good Chinese friends, he got beaten up in the streets, and he got sent into a coma because there was a lot of anti-Chinese sentiment going on because of all this racism coming out of the United States, with Trump saying it's a Kung flu, and Mike Pompeo being absolutely racist against the Chinese. So Chinese people were getting beaten up in UK, and one of my good friends got sent into coma. And I thought to myself, you know what, I need to speak out about this. This is not right. And so I started the YouTube channel, started to speak out about it. And then I started, learning from, you guys, listening to your channels. Alex was one of the first channels I followed, actually. And then I found you, Brian, and I listened to you guys listening to Duran. And it completely changed my outlook in a year. I mean, almost like 2 years ago, I was like everybody else in UK. I was completely oblivious what was happening around the world. And it just goes to show, if I can do it, anyone can do it. All you need is just a bit of common sense. Go out there, do your own research, listen to the right channels on YouTube, question everything. And your mind will open, just like mine did. And nowadays, I walk around the streets and I speak to UK people, and people are just so oblivious, exactly how I was before. And people nowadays people are more interested in what happens in Love Island than what's happening around the world. And you see what's happening in UK with inflation rising, cost of living rising. You see people losing their homes. But where are the protests? I mean, you've seen the protests in France, you've seen the protests in Germany, but there's nothing in UK. People are still oblivious to what's happening around the world, and I just can't believe it, because I think the British government have done a very good job in dumbing down the people here. And I speak to everyday people. They are completely oblivious to what's going on. They don't understand why they have this cost of living. They don't understand why their gas prices have gone up. They blame Putin, for example. And I'm just, I'm just face palming myself, thinking, "Oh my God, is this what British people have become?" And yeah, this is why I think it's really important for me to kind of spread this message out and try and even if I can get one person to change, question everything, become open-minded, and start listening to you guys and start listening to the right channel. If I can if I can change one person's mind, then I've done a good job. I just think it's really important to have channels like ourselves, like you, Brian, like you, Alex, and educate people, because people need educating, and there are a lot of people like I was, that they still have not had their mind opened yet. And imagine if everybody in this world had their minds open and listening to you guys, everybody will stand up and nobody will take any crap from the government. They'll be like, what did you say? No, we're not standing for that. It's crazy. But yeah, I really commend you guys. I mean, there's not many of us out there. You just have to count how many channels there are speaking the truth. And I can count less than 10. You got, there's obviously the Duran and Gonzalo Lira and a few others, but there's hardly anyone else. You have these big YouTube channels with millions of followers, millions of subs, talking a lot of crap. I'm talking about Visual Politic, which I used to follow once. Now they're just spurting out lots of junk and crap. TLDR and Caspian Reports, many other great big YouTube channels. Overnight, they just became shills for the West. And it's a shame, guys. But yeah, I just really want to commend you guys for doing what you're doing. I really want to thank all the viewers who have come in today and listening to us blabbering on. I know a lot of you have taken out some precious time to listening to us, so we really, really appreciate it. We've had almost 2,000 viewers, which has been a record. So I really want to thank everyone who has tuned in. And that's it for me, guys. Anything you want to finish up with?
No, just say thank you for having me on, and it's great to be back on the screen with you as well, Alex, and both of you. Keep it up.
Can I just say, will you come on again, Brian, and speak to us a bit more? There's so much more to talk about, and we'd like to have you on board regularly. There's so much to speak about in this world, and really appreciate your time. Brilliant.
Yes.
Alex, you want to finish up?
Yeah, I think it's important that everybody, if you haven't subscribed to Brian's channel, the links are in the description below for some extensive, investigative work that he does. And of course, if you're coming in from Brian's channel as well, don't forget to subscribe to AJ's channel, PTE. They're all in the links below. Mine is Reporterfy Media. I'm coming out of China, giving you information. If we change some minds tonight, we've accomplished something. And I think that is a goal that all of us are trying to do here. Again, what a great evening and what a pleasure to be on your program, AJ. I look forward to being here again. And it's nice to be kind of a guest on your show, It's cool. And let's do this again. And Brian, definitely, let's try to do something together as well. When we bring back one of my shows coming up in the future. But again, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. AJ, let me know how you want to shut down the show tonight. Do you want to keep the chat open for a couple of minutes while people can say goodbye to each other? You got quite the audience.
Yes,
I don't
please.
think
That's
a
the
hard
best
cut
way.
would be the best way
Yeah.
to just stop the show. So
Exactly. Before you guys go, can any of you answer this question from a super
Sure.
chat, Elena Diaz? I don't know whether you guys want to quickly answer it, because I think we should really answer the super chats. We shouldn't really leave these alone. So
Sure.
do you guys want to do it?
I'll give it a stab. China knows that if Russia fails in Ukraine, they're next. They're going to be next. And everything that we've seen the US attempt to subject Russia to or subject Russia to, it'll be off the scale when it comes to China. Think about the Russophobia that we see permeating Western society. Just think about how bad this will be when the West turns all of this onto China. There's always been this racism underneath the surface. I mean, this whole thing blew up with Trump's trade war, but they have been talking about doing this for decades, and they've been putting the pieces into place, and they have been playing their games for decades. It will be so much worse when it is China's turn. So people say, oh, I saw some comment that someone made somewhere in China. I don't think they're still supporting Russia anymore in Ukraine. They absolutely are. They know this is zero sum. If Russia goes, they're next. They know this. So I don't think they'll openly declare war, but I think they will do everything within their power to ensure that Russia succeeds.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Brian. So
Sure.
Alex, yeah, let's put this to a close. How do we stop this? I mean, this is
no problem. How about AJ?
I work in the IT sector, but I don't know.
No worries, my friend. Sit back. I'll exit to everyone, and
Okay,
we'll play a
brilliant.
bit of music. So you guys will see you guys all in the comment box. It's nice goodbye here from China and Brian in Thailand.
And Brian, if you hang
Fantastic
around,
country.
we would just want to say goodbyes
Sure.
backstage. So.
Sure. Okay, everyone.